Hi, welcome to BizTechSuktas. I am your host Sandeep Suryavanshi and I am the CEO of Aid Expert Advisory. In this podcast, we bring to you some very interesting case studies and stories about technology-led business transformation. We talk to experts who have managed large transformation projects. We talk to companies who've made big bets and who successfully innovated their business models using digital technologies. Hope that we have some fun conversations and lots of learning from our guests. And today we have a dear friend of mine and my ex-boss, Jangoo Dalal, as our guest, who's a veteran in technology business. He spent more than 35 years heading Cisco, Avaya, dealing in lots of other companies in India. In this new avatar, Jangoo is the co-founder and CEO of GovEVA, is a startup in ESG domain and has multiple products and solutions which address various dimensions of the emerging ESG domain. For large enterprise, if you look at any Fortune 500 company, actually, you'll see post-pandemic, each of them has environment, climate, sustainability, in general, ESG as one of their top priorities. And this is exactly what GovEVA addresses today. So, Jangoo, welcome to BizTechSuktas. It's really fun having you as a guest.
Thanks, Sandeep. Always a pleasure to share any platform or mind space, talk space with you. So thank you for inviting me and look forward to a good conversation.
Absolutely. Great. I'm pretty sure we will. So let me just jump into this straight away. ESG, this is, lots of people have heard about it because, like I said, there's a lot of talk about ESG, especially post-pandemic. But, just the acronym environmental sustainability governance. Beyond this, many people are quite confused about what it is and why it is becoming very important for corporations now. Can you talk about that a little bit for our audience?
Sure, Sandeep. Environment, social, and governance, and a lot of people do mix that S with sustainability.
Yeah.
Is an acronym, which kind of talks about the purpose of a corporation. And increasingly across the globe, in our part of the world, in Europe, in US, people are beginning to question and demand that what is the purpose for which a corporation is existing.
Right.
So it's all about ESG kind of helps you define and walk the talk on your purpose. Now, having said that, if you look at the acronym, it's environment, social, and governance. It's quite a differentiated mix. So on the one hand, you're talking about environment and its impact on your business or your impact as a business on the environment. On the second hand, on social, you're talking about what is it that you're doing from a social perspective, which is your employees, your stakeholders, the larger community in which you operate. And then finally, governance, right? Because any corporation, if it is not governed well, inevitably, forget E&S, even the business doesn't become a long-term sustainable business.
Yeah.
And what's happening is, there are many drivers towards making ESG a very seminal and I would say important part of business today.
Yeah.
I will just take two or three what I think are pivots or inflection points which are driving this. One of them, which I think is very important, is willy-nilly, whether we like it or not. A lot of corporate thoughts, philosophy, management ideas, ways of running business, whether in India or globally, come out of the US. US has been the kind of the mother, father of capitalism, and all of the large corporations over there have been, drivers of global businesses and thought processes. Now, if you look in the US, there is this organization called the Business Roundtable, more popularly known as the BRT. If you look at the BRT, and if you think of corporate America, the top 150 companies, the General Electrics, the Apples, the Googles, they are all part of that. And the Business Roundtable is the CEO chairman of these top 150 corporates. And if you look at that 150 corporates in terms of sheer market cap, it's a humongous amount. It's close to 25-30 trillion dollars, right? Just to put it in perspective, it's 10 times the GDP of a country like ours. Now, if you look at corporate America, it was always driven by this doctrine of shareholder premises. So The fundamental concept was that every enterprise or corporation has to be doing various things, but its main responsibility was to deliver value and returns to the shareholder. And that's what was driven even by the Business Roundtable, the who's who, movers, shakers of corporate America and the world. But considering all the various things which happened, there was a seminal moment around April of 2019 when the BRT actually came out with a new charter for corporations. And it said that it's no longer enough to just deliver shareholder value, and every corporation has to have a purpose and focus on larger stakeholder returns. So there was a seminal shift from focus on pure shareholder returns to stakeholder returns. And they've actually elaborated and elucidated what are those stakeholders. They talk about your internal employees, your customers, your suppliers, your vendors, the largest society which you operate in, the communities which get impacted by your businesses, and then the planet at large as well. And
so the triple bottom line, if I might call it, triple bottom line.
Yes, absolutely. People, planet, and profits kind of thing. That was one, inflection point. Another driver has been, investors are increasingly realizing that measuring, monitoring, assessing companies on financial parameters is just not enough, right? Throughout the globe, right from Enron to the Shell fiasco around environment, and in our own country, governance failures around IL&FS or Yes Bank, which was such a great thing going down. Or nearer home, very recently, Vedanta had this huge copper smelter in Tuticorin. And at one point in time, they used to manufacture 30% of India's copper. India is extremely copper import dependent. Any growing economy, as you might know, as tech people, copper is very important. It's there everywhere in our house, in our office, in our everything, right? Vedanta had this lovely copper smelter, 1,500 employees in Tuticorin, state of the art, didn't pay much attention or proactively pay attention to, I would say, bubbling emotions around environment and social. And eventually that plant had to be shut down, which is not just a national loss, it's a loss to the entrepreneur, to the business house, etc. So investors have realized that Vedanta at its peak from a financial performance was doing very well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great top line, great bottom line. Copper is a commodity in demand. You are supplying India's 30% requirement kind of thing. Your pricing power. But as an investor, now you look retrospectively, just evaluating them on financial parameters was not enough. So besides the BRT now, investors globally, when they look at corporations, and investors and money has now become very global. So you'll have a Canadian pension fund investing in infrastructure in India. You'll have large sovereign funds from the Middle East or even Malaysia investing across the world. They all started looking at non-financial parameters, which essentially then boil down to your ESG. So if you look at it, I would say what's driving ESG, one is corporations moving their focus from shareholder to multi-stakeholder returns, investor pressures, and then the whole fact that we are now in a very integrated global supply chain kind of an environment. So if you are a small business, large business, if you're IT services business servicing clients in US, or if you're a guy in Lucknow or somewhere in Kanpur making stuff which IKEA is buying from you, they're no longer going to buy from you if you're not part of their global supply chain requirements on ESG. So a lot of things happening, Sandeep, which is, I think, moving companies towards purpose and ESG, which is a very nice thing to happen, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of ESG becoming a corporate priority now, as you said, there is overall the kind of pressures, triple bottom line kind of understanding the importance of that. That's been one of the things. But beyond that, what are the other aspects? Say, what about the pandemic? What about the climate crisis? I mean, we've seen many crazy examples. Enron looks now smaller when you compare to FTX crypto kind of frauds that are coming out. So can you talk about the other aspects that are driving ESG to become a corporate priority?
Sure. So this whole thing around environment and climate urgency is actually driving a lot of thoughts around businesses. So, I think today's conversation, we'll confine ourselves to climate, ESG, whatever, as it pertains to business and corporations.
Oh, yeah,
right?
sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, if you look at it, and we'll go one by one. If you look at just E itself, it's a major factor from a risk measurement perspective. Let me give you a very current example of how climate change can create risks which people are not thinking about earlier.
Right.
So I'm sure all of us, all of our friends will be listening to this podcast or viewing it on various channels would know that this year, April and May were the hottest that we as a country faced.
Right.
In our 100 years of recorded temperatures, April and May, as a national average, was the hottest recorded, average temperature in a century. So what? Because of global warming and so on and so forth. But how does it immediately impact business? So, hot summer, a lot of our wheat growing belt around UP, Haryana, Punjab actually bore a much larger brunt of this extreme heat, as even compared to the national average. As a result of that, immediate forecast was that India's wheat crop would be down by something like 15%.
Oh, wow.
So April, May, hottest years, wheat, which is a staple diet, dal roti ka sawal kind of thing, down 15%. And as early as June, prices of wheat started moving up. Now, what was the impact? There are many companies who make products where wheat is a key ingredient. Think of your Gluco biscuit, your Marie biscuit, your Parleys, your Britannias, etc. Wheat, which is a key input material for them, price went up. Now your humble Gluco biscuit, which is costing $10, they had to raise it to either 11 or 12, or keep it at 10, and the number of biscuits, whether you realize it or not, actually went down. Right? Now, within a short span of 3 months of having a climate impact, you're seeing that pricing has changed. Now, the point is, 6 months earlier, 1 year earlier, was someone thinking and weighing these risk factors that climate is going to impact critical input raw materials? And if that happens, is there a price elasticity of demand? Will it affect my production? Will it affect my offtake, my top lines, etc.? So it is very urgent. Climate is not something very esoteric or it is being felt. We read about it all the time, but it is impacting business big time. Similarly, the social unrest and the awareness around social is becoming extremely large. For example, in certain countries in Europe, Mondelez, who makes this Cadbury's brand, which is, all of us grew up and continue consuming that. For a period of time, in some countries around Europe, their product was kind of boycotted by a few people because they had concerns around how cocoa was being sourced in Africa, and what were the and what was the employment practices, treatment of people over there, right? Similarly, on the governance side, I mentioned to you cases like Yes Bank and ILFS, and so on and so forth. My apology. Now, each of them, if you look at it, there were risk factors which impacted business. Similarly, there are opportunities as well which come out of it for businesses, right? There is an increasing set of clients, Generation Y, Generation Z people, who are very conscious consumers. And they're willing to pay premium for doing stuff well. Similarly, we've worked with companies on the environment side, social side, governance side, especially on environment. When you start re-looking at stuff, start re-engineering your business processes, you actually end up creating not only better products, but also saving a lot of money on input costs, process efficiencies, etc. So there are lots of risks and opportunities there. Climate is one of them. We just had the COP27 recently. There is great urgency. Unless we really work as a planet, we are in real trouble. And then I think this whole Corona period where all of us were confined to homes, now we are working from home, has made a lot of people think about their basic fundamentals, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Post-COVID, life has changed, whether we like it or not, right? At this point in time, I'm pretty sure at least 20% of the guys in the IT services business in Pune are working from home as we speak. That was not even thought about 3-4 years back.
Yeah.
And when you do that, what are the impacts on environment, social governance, positive, negative? So you're right. All of these things are kind of accelerating and making this movement go faster.
Right. So great. So now coming to the technology aspect of this, I think, as one gets deeper into this, one realizes that, earlier it was, boardroom talk and, maybe a policy decision kind of stuff. Now that's no longer true. There are lots of metrics to measure. There is truly specific processes to be followed. And all of this now obviously is not possible without technology. And that's where I guess GovEVA comes in, that there is now a lot of technological inputs that are required, tools to be used, people to be incorporated. It becomes an organizational requirement to implement some kind of a technology to manage the ESG processes. Can you talk about that a little? Why technology and what technology does today, and what should the CIO, CTOs really think about?
So if you look at it, just like to run our business, we need some or the other form of an ERP system now, to run businesses. And why do we need that? Because corporations are increasingly integrated, right? Nothing happens in isolation. Manufacturing is not on its own. It's interlinked to finance and HR and so on and so forth. Now, if you look at ESG, for it to be adopted in an organization, it has to be across the organization. It cannot be a bunch of 2 or 3 people, or as you mentioned, the board talking about it and nothing happening. You need to first measure where you are, chart a path for yourself, and then go down that path. Yeah. Now, when you do all of these things, there is multiple people and stakeholders within the company and outside involved. And for any medium to large size of company, minute there are multiple people involved, data information, collaboration. Without tech, it's just not possible nowadays. Second part is within ESG, there are a lot of data which is required to be collated, sometimes even calculated. So for example, what is this whole climate urgency around? It's all about us as a human race emitting a lot of carbon and other equivalent gases, which are making our planet extremely vulnerable to increased temperatures, which has lots and lots of snowballing downstream effects. Now, it's required for corporations to measure what is their carbon footprint. Now that gets extremely complicated. There's this concept of scope 1, 2, and 3 within carbon. How do you determine that? How do you measure that? Very fact that we are talking today on a online system, both of us are consuming electricity, which in itself creates a carbon footprint. Now we extend that to corporations, energy consumed, electricity consumed, transport, travel, everything contributes to emissions. How do you measure that? Again, you need tech for that. For example, say a company which has got even 5 or 6 different locations, simple thing of calculating emissions by usage of electricity across different offices. How do you standardize it? How do you figure out how to calculate it simply by getting your electric bill and units consumed? All of that requires tech. So in a sense, tech is required because there are multiple data points which need to be brought together. A lot of those data might be in a raw format, so they have to be calculated, managed, processed in the way ESG requires them. And then obviously, as you go down the path, So, in ESG, very often this concept you hear only on the environment side is around net zero.
Yeah.
When do I, as a company, I do stuff which makes my carbon footprint neutral or zero? Now, that's a journey. It's not going to happen overnight, right? Even if you are, say, a 300, 400, 3,000 people office, and in that you want to reduce your carbon footprint on electricity, if you're in a rental premises where you have no control over anything, how do you achieve that?
Yeah.
It has to be a multi-year process. So multiple people, so how do you manage those workflows? How do you chart that? How do you monitor that? And then finally, regulators around the globe and investors are now requiring you to publish reports in prescribed specific formats.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they can monitor you and then also do peer and benchmarking analysis, etc. Now, all of us as tech people, when you see data silos, multiple people, multiple initiatives, multiple calculations, multiple reports, it's very obvious without tech, you just can't do this, right?
Yeah. Great. So, so in terms of the ESG impact on each business, I mean, I think there is some amount of, there can, like any compliance thing, either or rather the process implementation that we go through ISO 20K, 27K kind of thing. I think even in this, there is certain companies who want to focus on the regulatory stuff. That, okay, am I passing that bar or not? And some people say, no, we want to really be good corporate citizens. So what do you see in reality, and how does it play out in your client base today? What do you see happening? Are really people, some of them, being really honest citizens and want to be carbon neutral, or you see that sometimes it's okay, if I pass muster, I'm fine? What's your experience?
So like in everything else in the world, there are different kind of people, there are different kind of companies also. But I would say even the people who start just from a regulatory requirement that, so for example, India now, our top 1,000 companies have to file the BRSR. Top 1,000 listed companies by law for the year ending March 23rd have to file the business responsibility and sustainability report. Right. This is a SEBI mandate. Right. And anybody who's seen the BRSR or has worked with it gets stumped. It has tremendous amount of data that you have to provide, disclose, calculate, manage, and present in an extremely prescriptive format. Right. Now, when people start doing that due to a regulatory pressure, their eyes start opening up to A, opportunities, B, risks, and see the whole thing. Finally, we as humans are all now getting inputs and realizing that there's no point just making money for the sake of it. Yeah. It's not just how much money you make, but how you make the money is also becoming very important for corporations as well. And just like in the individual lives, people like to do things the right way, and individuals drive corporations. So that's happening, Sandeep. Great. So yes, there is a regulatory requirement. More importantly, it's a very important business requirement. Today, no way you can be part of global logistic chains or supply chains if you're not following and improving on your ESG parameters. Right. Among our client base, we have a couple of global logistic companies. These are the people who move people's goods around. Right. There was a study done that almost 70% of what all of us consume, Sandeep, Jangoo, all of us on this podcast, video channel, is affected by some or the other global movement. So 70% of what we consume has moved around the globe, which is logistics supply chain. So if you're a large brand like, say, Nike, aspirational, leading brand leader, etc., you need to position yourself as a sustainable ESG champion. Absolutely. Now, if you look at a sneaker brand like Nike, and I've heard podcasts around this, just like we're doing one today, a lot of what contributes their carbon footprint and environmental impact comes from the fact that their products are moving all around the world. The logistics. So Nike, logistics, right? A pair of shoes is made in Vietnam or somewhere in China or somewhere in Asia or Latin America, and it moves across the globe in ships. Yeah. And the very process of moving the product from one place to another is contributing to carbon, because the ship wasn't moving,
Absolutely.
unless you needed to move the goods. And every time a ship moves, it's a big emitter.
Yeah.
So now people like Nike are extremely pushy, and I'm just taking that as an example. I'm sure all big brands are doing that on logistics supply companies as to, hey, listen, what are you doing to improve your ESG performance as a company? Because in turn, it affects me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So regulatory pressure, business pressure, supply chain pressure, you just can't get new businesses or bid for new businesses today unless you meet ESG criteria. Many companies now, global companies, in their vendor registration, vendor selection, not only have quality, timeliness, money, rate, etc., but ESG as another qualification.
Yeah.
So all of this driving it, and then there is this. I think ESG is a new acronym, but a lot of good companies have been doing stuff around environment, social, have been well governed anyway, right? So it's part of their DNA. We just now need to bring it all together.
Right. Yeah, this is really enlightening and opening our eyes to this whole new trend of ESG and way beyond just the acronym, but understanding how companies need to and must use technology to address the compliances. Where does GovEVA play here? I mean, how can GovEVA help?
So GovEVA, which actually we coined the word as governance, leading to economic value add. So we started with the G of ESG, and we wanted a .com, so we got GovEVA. And the reason we chose EVA next to Gov was economic value add. We are very clear that doing ESG, good governance, does and can lead to good economic outcomes as well. So it's just not nice to do, good to do, but it makes economic sense. Where we play, Sandeep, is we are like end-to-end partners for our enterprise clients, right from helping them figure out where they stand today vis-a-vis various global standards. You need to be global standard adherent. So if, say, the ideal shipping ESG client is 100, where are you? Are you at 50, 60? As per global standards like GRI of Europe or SASB of USA, if the ideal IT services company from an ESG perspective is 100, where are you? So first thing is baselining, figuring out where you are. We help them do that. And then from there, how can they move forward in their journey? What do they need to do to improve on all of that? All of that, we help them do it digitally. And that entire measurement of various quants, monitoring, measuring them, managing them. So think of us like the ERP of ESG. Whatever you want to do around ESG across the organization from a collaborative data management perspective, we do it. So it's a combination of great digital technology, but more importantly, relevant and useful ESG content and domain knowledge. Because in today's world, ESG is still an emerging field. A lot of our clients that we deal with have great ambition, but within their company, capacity or knowledge for ESG is very low.
Limited.
And even if you look outside, there are no ready-made people. So
that's been a challenge, I guess. Finding the right people is a big,
So GovEVA is this end-to-end digital platform with technology plus content. And where required, we also give our advisory and other services to get the clients going.
Great. All right. Thank you so much, Jangoo. It's been a pleasure. And I'm wishing you all the best for GovEVA to really conquer the world. And I'm pretty sure it's getting there because this is I think it's a technology right time at the right place where there's a huge amount of demand coming up. So wishing you all the best for that. And thank you for your thoughts and insights. And it's been really nice. So audience, feel free to subscribe at the bottom of this link on any of the podcasts or the YouTube channel, and you can keep hearing about what's new coming up in BizTechSuktas. Thank you so much, and have a nice day. Thank you.